The highway was empty, but danger was waiting. A federal judge traveling alone at night pulled into a small rest stop, unaware she was about to face a nightmare she never imagined. Uniformed women surrounded her car, their badges gleaming but their intentions dark. Within moments she was handcuffed, her authority dismissed, her life shaken. Hidden on an FBI wire, every word and action was recorded, revealing racism, abuse of power, and a system failing those it should protect. What happened that night would shock a nation and force questions no one was ready to answer. She had spent years climbing the ladder of justice, a federal judge respected for her integrity and groundbreaking rulings. Her work had challenged long-standing prejudices, overturned unjust convictions, and defended the rights of the vulnerable. Yet on this quiet autumn evening, she wasn't in a courtroom. She was driving home after a long day of hearings, the kind of drive that allowed her to reflect on the weight of her decisions and the lives she had touched. The highway stretched endlessly, flanked by dense forests and occasional signs warning of the next rest area. She slowed as the familiar glow of a rest stop appeared ahead. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed softly, a deceptive calm masking the isolation of the location. Few travelers stopped here, making it the kind of place where moments felt suspended in time, safe yet strangely exposed. As she parked, she noticed the two women standing near the entrance. Their uniforms were crisp, their posture authoritative. A flicker of unease passed through her, a quiet instinct that something felt off. But she dismissed it. After all, law enforcement was meant to protect, not intimidate. Her mind drifted to the cases she had overseen that week. The young man wrongly accused of theft, the immigrant family fighting deportation, the whistleblower exposing systemic corruption. Each victory came with resistance, but she had learned to trust evidence, procedure, and the law itself. She had never imagined that she could be the one targeted, that her own authority could be questioned, her rights dismissed in the blink of an eye. In these final moments before the nightmare began, the rest stop seemed ordinary, almost mundane. Yet beneath the hum of the fluorescent lights, a storm was brewing, one that would expose hidden biases, test her resilience, and reveal truths about the very system she had sworn to uphold. The two women in uniform moved closer, their footsteps echoing against the concrete floor of the rest stop. At first, the judge thought it was a routine check, perhaps a traffic warning or a standard security question. But their eyes carried something colder, sharper, an unreadable intensity that made her heart tighten. Every instinct screamed caution, but the mind trained in law and procedure forced calm. She stepped out of her car, hands visible, fully expecting respect for her position and credentials. Instead, the atmosphere shifted immediately. Words were exchanged, sharp, clipped, full of insinuation. They questioned her identity, her authority, even her right to be there. Confusion turned into disbelief as one of the officers demanded her identification while speaking over her, dismissing explanations, ignoring the badge and credentials tucked into her briefcase. The federal seal meant nothing here. The weight of her career, her years of service, counted for nothing against the simmering prejudice in front of her. A small crowd of passing travelers glanced over, sensing tension, but unsure if intervention was safe. The judge remained composed, her mind racing through legal options, recalling the countless cases she had fought against injustice. Yet logic and law meant little in the face of bias entrenched in authority. One of the women moved closer, a hand resting on her holstered weapon. The judge's pulse quickened, her chest tightening with a mix of fear and indignation. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Each question was a test, each command a subtle power play. Her attempts to reason, to explain her position, were brushed aside. The humiliation was suffocating, a stark reversal of roles she had spent decades defending. The law enforcer reduced to powerless observer, her dignity questioned purely because of who she was. Behind the scenes, unbeknownst to anyone present, an FBI wire recorded every word, every tone, every subtle intimidation. Later, this recording would reveal the depth of the bias. Not just a procedural misunderstanding, but a deliberate targeting rooted in racism and gendered prejudice. For now, the judge endured the moment, acutely aware of the stakes, not just for herself, but for what it represented. A systemic failure, a societal blind spot, a reminder that injustice could strike anywhere, even in places meant to be safe. Time became a blur. Her hands shook subtly as they were forced behind her back and the cold steel of handcuffs clicked into place. The public image of power and authority, carefully built over years, crumbled in a single devastating instant. Every fiber of her training and self-discipline was tested, as was her understanding of the country she had devoted her life to serving. The rest stop, once ordinary, had become a theater of tension, fear, and betrayal, a microcosm of larger societal inequities, illuminated under the harsh glare of law enforcement that had lost its moral compass. And yet, amid the fear, a flicker of determination remained. She would not be silenced. She would not be erased. This moment, painful and shocking, would soon expose truths too important to ignore. The nightmare was far from over, and the climax was yet to come. The handcuffs bit into her wrists, cold metal, a stark reminder that authority had been stripped from her. Every rational thought collided with disbelief. She had upheld the law countless times, defended the powerless, and fought systemic bias in courtrooms across the nation. But now, she was powerless, subject to the very injustices she had spent her life confronting. The two women in uniform exchanged glances, their faces hard, unyielding. Their voices rose slightly, accusations sharpened, insinuations made with calculated cruelty. Each word was a hammer, striking at her dignity, her reputation, and the sense of security she had always carried. Time seemed to stretch endlessly. The world outside the fluorescent-lit rest stop ceased to exist. She was trapped in a moment where logic and law were irrelevant, where the only currency was bias and fear. Her mind raced. She pictured the FBI wire hidden in her car, recording every detail, capturing proof of what was happening. Yet even knowing the truth was documented did little to ease the humiliation, the terror. She felt the weight of history pressing down, generations of people who had been disbelieved, dismissed, and dehumanized. In that instant, she understood fully the deep, personal sting of systemic racism, how it could infect even those sworn to uphold justice. A bystander shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the unfolding scene. The judge met their eyes briefly, the silent plea unmistakable. "See this. Understand it. Do not let it pass unnoticed." But most looked away, unwilling to confront the uncomfortable reality of the moment. And then, the tipping point. The moment when everything would either break or be revealed. A command barked, a refusal to cooperate, and yet the judge's inner resolve ignited. She refused to shrink under injustice. Every fiber of her being screamed, "The truth will come out." The wire captured the subtle threats, the dismissive tones, the way bias had masqueraded as procedure. Evidence, once hidden, now held the power to expose not just the individuals, but a system willing to protect its own prejudices at the expense of truth. The rest stop, a place meant for safety and pause, had become a battlefield of power, fear, and moral reckoning. And in that crucible of tension, one thing was certain. The story would not end here. The nightmare would soon ignite a larger confrontation with justice, accountability, and the unflinching truth about who is protected and who is left vulnerable. The nightmare at the rest stop eventually came to an end, but its impact lingered far beyond the fluorescent lights and concrete floors. The judge was released, her name cleared, and the FBI wire recording became undeniable proof of the racial bias and abuse of authority she had faced. Yet the ordeal left more than physical or legal marks. It carved deep emotional scars, a reminder that injustice can reach even those most protected by the law. In the days and weeks that followed, the story spread quietly at first, then erupted into public conversation. People were forced to confront uncomfortable truths. That bias can hide behind badges, that power can be wielded with prejudice, and that even the highest offices of justice are not immune to systemic flaws. Her experience became more than a personal ordeal. It became a symbol of resilience, courage, and the ongoing fight for accountability in every corner of society. Despite the fear and humiliation, she refused to be silenced. Her resolve strengthened, driving her to advocate for reforms, accountability, and awareness of how racial and gender bias can infiltrate institutions meant to protect citizens. The rest stop, once an ordinary waypoint on a highway, became a metaphor. Even seemingly mundane spaces can reveal the fractures in our systems, the hidden dangers in everyday life, and the need for vigilance, empathy, and courage. Her story challenges everyone who hears it to ask difficult questions. How often do we turn a blind eye to injustice? How many voices go unheard simply because the world isn't ready to confront its biases? The answer is uncomfortable, but confronting it is the first step toward change. If this story moved you, made you reflect, or sparked questions about justice and equality, take a moment to engage. Like if you believe accountability matters, share to spread awareness, and comment your thoughts, because change begins when stories are heard, understood, and amplified. The fight for justice doesn't end at a rest stop. It continues with every voice willing to speak, every action willing to stand, and every individual refusing to ignore the truth.